Life does not have to be so difficult.
I agree.
We had such a challenging week. It was definitely
absolutely.
a difficult week. It was unbelievably challenging. And I thought to myself, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
What on earth happened? We've been working on our thoughts, working on our energy, raising our vibration, bringing in so many wonderful things that have been happening to us, so many cool things. And when we would have something that was a little bit of a challenge, we would look at it in a different way and realize that the challenge was teaching us something and is a gift. We even talked about it in the podcast last week. You've got to see and listen to that podcast because we really, spoke about how you can go from horrible to happy when you're dealing with a challenge.
Right.
But we're here today to talk about life doesn't be so difficult. So welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Janet McKee, speaker, author, wellness expert, founder of SanaView with my partner in crime here, my son, Nathan McKee, who's partner in business for SanaView and does all the videography, photography, technology, marketing.
And this podcast.
And the podcast. Yay, Nathan. And every week, as we told you, we get together and we find ourselves having these incredible conversations. And just today, we're having this deep, incredible, powerful conversation in the kitchen. We said, wait a minute, get the camera, let's turn it on. And here we are. Yep. So thank you for joining us. And yes, it's true. We had an incredibly difficult week. And we were both involved in it in a really intense way. And it made me realize, okay, what happened? What happened to my energy? Yeah. I was doing so well. And I knew that as my energy was being destroyed, my energy vibration I was giving out must have been more negative, and it created more negative situations to arise in my life. And I knew I was doing it, but I couldn't understand why.
Well, it's definitely hard, especially last week. I mean, last week was, I would say, beyond a challenging week. I mean, it was almost like a Murphy's Law week where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And it just seemed like it was never ending. And then, at the end of the week, it seemed to kind of alleviate itself. But it's hard not to be super negative whenever you're dealing with big, expensive challenges, personal, business, everything was just hard.
Yeah. And it's really not a Murphy's Law. Some people call it the law of attraction. Some people call it, that energy vibration, the sixth sense that you give off, whatever. We don't realize how much we do create what's happening around us. So we've been talking about that a little bit. But what I realized, and you and I were just talking about, and you were recognizing what I did to myself. Mm-hmm. I was in California the day after I came back from California, which was a trip, very intense trip. I didn't get much rest. Mm-hmm. I then taught a huge rejuvenation retreat. You helped me to 50 people. Then from there, had to catch up from being in California with work, was piled up on my desk. And then we did a farm to table dinner. I was nonstop.
It was a lot.
I never got enough rest. I wasn't taking care of myself. And it affected my energy.
Right.
I know you've told me before that, you see me sometimes work nonstop.
Yeah, I think you go and go and go. And, you involve yourself in your work so much, which is a great thing. But it's not the standard 9-to-5 deal where people take vacation days and they have weekends off and they have evenings off. You tend to go all the time. You have a lot on your plate, but being able to manage that is incredibly important. And that's kind of where the whole wellness thing comes in, is you need to take care of yourself if you're going to be able to put out that much energy all the time.
Absolutely. And it's key for me to be the best I can be for my clients, for my family, for my friends, for my employees, right? I've got to be the best I can be. And I teach this. I teach that wellness is the foundation of living a successful life. And we found that the High Performance Institute found it, 20 years of research. I've seen it. I've been speaking about it for decades. You've got to take care of yourself if you want to have the energy, vitality, clear thinking, confidence, motivation, productivity to have a successful life, even to be good with your spouse, your friends, your family. You need to feel your best and be your best so that you can be the best. And that is a requirement for success, and a success in both your personal and professional life.
One thing I would like to talk about in terms of success, as a college student, I'm trying my hardest to be successful and get the good grades so that I can get the degree at the end of the day and ultimately do something where I can make something of myself in my life. There's one, as far as I know, there's one Dunkin' Donuts location on campus in the city. And literally every single morning, the line is out the door, down the street, and not by a little bit. I mean, it is far down the street. People waiting in line, and they go and they get these huge iced coffees. And then you can have a donut put over the top of the straw on the top of the cup. And so you see people walking around with huge sugary iced coffees, with the cream and the sugar and everything, plus a glazed Dunkin' donut on the top. And I honestly do not understand how these kids don't just totally drop dead from, pure exhaustion or just like the health challenges or whatever else. How can you go and take an exam or pay attention in class when you are hyped up on 32 ounces of sugar and, milked up coffee? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I know I couldn't do it.
People don't realize. People do not realize how good they can feel. And that's one thing we're very aware of. When we're taking good care of ourselves, we know how fabulous we feel. And we know as soon as we get off track, what happens? What I told you the other day, there was a wedding at the farm and they had the award-winning burnt almond tort for wedding cake. And I try not to eat simple sugar. We eat healthy. We're going to talk about that soon. But I decided to have some. And I was miserable after that. I was tired and I was cranky and I'm like, what happened to me? I'm like a happy, positive person. It's like,
it's the sugar, the simple sugar just gets out. Yeah. It's hard because it's, fun to celebrate. And I think we had talked about this in one of the previous episodes where, you have to have a certain mentality about eating the certain foods, but that'll be something that we cover in more detail. But the point is, it's hard not to want to enjoy the things and celebrate, but you just have to be careful, maybe the time of day. And do you have things that are like critical things that you have to get done? Make sure those are done before you enjoy the sugars. And
yeah, absolutely. And then how are those students getting through a day of college studying and courses and what on the sugary coffee and the donut. But that's not just students, right?
Let's look at it. It's all kinds of people.
It's amazing when you really look at what people are putting in their mouths, what's happening. But the thing is, so a couple things. First of all, I see in your generation, though, there's like this.
It's a split.
There's two schools of thought, right? You got those students, you've told me, to stand in line at Dunkin' Donuts every day, and then you see them eating all day long, right? Sometimes it's even like, it's really scary. Sometimes even repulsive when you see, right? With the way people eat and the way and like you said, they're rebelling.
At least that's what it is. At least maybe that's not exactly what it is, but at least to me, that's what it seems like. And it's the same thing with like smoking. A lot of college students are on campus smoking and doing the Dunkin' Donuts thing. And I'm all for everybody doing what they want to do. I just can't help with all of the information that's out there today how people can still choose to live that life and feel good about it.
I think they think the cigarette's making them feel good. They think the donut's making them happy. They don't realize what it really feels like. Like I said, to feel fabulous, to feel happy, to feel energized. A client of mine said the other day how he's living in a dual universe. Now he's realizing what it's like. He was living in a negative universe. He's not living in a positive universe. It's like crazy. But in your generation, though, I'm seeing more and more people being vegetarian or vegan, or they want to know where their food came from.
The juice places are incredibly popular too. I know a lot of people, both that I went to high school with and that, I'm students with at college, they go to, like the clean juice, and they go to these places where they can get good, green, organic, cold pressed juices. And I think that's great. Yeah.
Like plant-based protein.
Right. So it's not all bad. There is a second part to this whole thing of, there are people that are interested in the environmental impact, the health impact, and that is very exciting for me to see.
It's very exciting for me to see, especially after decades of teaching about health and wellness, because in my generation, I was one of the first in my circles to even consider what food am I putting into my body? Where's the food coming from? How's it grown? But I had to do it for survival.
Oh, yeah.
I mentioned in the first podcast briefly that my own health challenge led me, right, to what we do today. But let's talk about that for a little bit.
It was hard. That was hard.
It was awful. I was a young, athletic, aggressive career woman, MBA, high pressure, high powered job, and became completely debilitated by an autoimmune disease and landed in the hospital. I couldn't eat. It was too painful. And I remember I didn't even eat much for 2 months leading up to landing in the hospital. And I think it was, I say this sometimes, the Duchess of Windsor, she said once, you can never be too rich or too thin. I was definitely too thin. I looked like I was from a concentration camp. I couldn't eat. I would like to know what it feels like to be too rich. We will let you know.
Maybe one day.
We'll let you know.
Yeah, that's right.
But I landed in the hospital, couldn't eat, too painful. I had internal bleeding that wouldn't stop, and I couldn't walk. And the doctor came to me and said, Gianna, we know why you can't walk, because your liver's failing, because you're allergic to the medications for your autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
We have two options for you. One, we can either try this other medication, but it has a 15% chance of causing cancer, or we can start removing your organs.
Right.
I didn't know anything about natural health and healing. I was a corporate girl. I was, high pressure, high powered job, but something came over me in the hospital that day. And I said, no, I'm not going to do either of those. And I remember, never forget the day you guys came in to get me out of the hospital. I couldn't even walk up and down the steps of my own home. I was in bad shape. But I started on my journey of learning how to heal my body naturally, not really knowing how to do it or what to do. I don't even remember how I got through that. But through a few years of trial and error, I completely resolved my health challenge. And that's what inspired me to quit the corporate world and go to Columbia University and study wellness. And that was really fascinating, because I went there kind of cautiously, because I thought, well, I was able to heal my body. Maybe other people can't. Maybe my situation's unique. But here all these great medical doctors came and taught us that food and lifestyle are everything. Everything to not only prevent illness, but to even reverse some health challenges. And we've talked in earlier podcasts about how I've worked people to reverse heart disease, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune disease, even some cancers. And it's kind of funny, because I talk about, I made changes. So my generation, for the most part, there were people in my generation that were doing the vegetarian thing, eating healthy, whatever. But in my circles, I was looked at as I was a weirdo.
Well, that was a number of years ago, and it wasn't as popular as it is today. There weren't the juice places and the organic produce and, all that stuff around nearly as much as there is today.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like family members even saying, you know, Janet, why are you so worried about you? Even they saw me like almost not coming out of the hospital alive, but heal my body.
It is kind of crazy if you think about it, right? That people would be so up in arms about how you're eating, and yet they would have been totally on board with the medication that was like killing you. It's fascinating to me. I'm just kind of dumbfounded by it sometimes.
Yeah. It absolutely is fascinating. And it's kind of, you know, your own grandfather, Nonno, right? He used to laugh at me about eating healthy. I can eat anything and I'm fine. But he, at about 75 years old, got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Yeah. And he came to me and he said, okay, Janet, I'm scared. What do I do? Mm-hmm. And I actually told him, well, let's go back to the way you ate in the old country.
Yeah.
Right? He grew up in Italy.
It's not complicated stuff.
It isn't. And it's foods I knew he loved. And it's like, okay, let's go back to that. And I even said, well, first of all, they didn't have any sugar. Mm-hmm. They had honeybees. Mm-hmm. And they have a little bit of honey, like once a year at Christmas time. Remember with the crispitella? Yeah. We'll talk about that another time. But they didn't eat a lot of sugar. But we think of Italians as eating a whole lot of cheese. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to my father, like, did you eat a lot of cheese in the old country? And he said, no. We had just like a little piece this big.
Yeah, it was a condiment. It wasn't a main ingredient in a lot of the stuff.
Not every single day, because they didn't. And it came from animals that were raised naturally, right? So we, cut back on that because all the high fat, people think that diabetes was just sugar, but it's actually a lot of fat. We're not going to go into detail on that today. But then I said, did you eat a lot of meat? And he said, oh, no, we couldn't afford that. They had one pig that they had stuff all year. They cured some of it, whatever, right? So what did you eat, Dad? I said, a lot of vegetables, a lot of plant foods, whole grains, beans, peas. This was whole grains, pasta, vegetables. They lived on a farm. They grew their own food.
And it was non-GMO stuff, too. I mean, this was like
organic.
basic can be. Going back to simple simplicity, like that is it, like nothing complex, nothing complicated. And I think that's the thing, is that a lot of people get kind of freaked out because they think that to eat healthy, it has to be complicated and it has to be hard. But just kind of like the title of this episode, like life doesn't have to be so difficult. Like it's not difficult. And it's just, if people could change the way that they view this thing, I mean, the stuff that Nono eats is like basic food. It's not complex. It's not hard to understand.
It's actually common sense. It's really common sense. That's why we teach about getting back to the rhythms of Mother Nature again, right? You go to bed when it's dark. You rise when the sun comes up. You breathe fresh air. You drink fresh water. You eat real foods grown naturally. In the old country, and they still do it today in Europe, they don't even accept in some foods from this country, from the United States into Europe.
Right.
They refuse because it's genetically modified and loaded with all kinds of pesticides and chemicals, and it's not real food at all. Where in the old country, they grew real food grown naturally. Do you remember on this wall of the Amazing Cafe, which is not open anymore, unfortunately, it said, what today they call organic, when our grandparents were growing up, they called it food.
Yeah, right.
It's like such common sense. This is food, the way it's supposed to be grown. And it's very fascinating. People, at our last Empower 3 leadership retreat, one of the attendees was a very successful financial analyst. And since we were teaching that wellness is the foundation for living a successful life, and why, remember he raised his hand and said, Janet, please explain to me, what does that mean, organic? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I remember that.
So we had a conversation. What it means is food that's not sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, genetically modified. People are like, well, what is that anyway? Well, in order for the big mono-agricultural farms to grow fields and fields of that means one crop, right? Corn or soy or something. They're getting these genetically modified seeds, and they can fly over the acreage and spray glyphosate, which is Roundup. And what I understand, right? It gets in the soil, it gets in the food. in corn, for example, the whole idea then is when the pest bites into the corn, the glyphosate, it bursts their stomach open and they die. Well, we're eating these foods that just aren't grown the way it was meant to be naturally. And so we're eating basically Roundup. And so these pesticides and herbicides, fungicides, I understand they've been proven, some of them are carcinogens, but also even what it's doing to our digestive tract is like completely destroying our digestive tract. And let's look at this even, for example. So many people are gluten intolerant today. Well, it's because the wheat isn't grown naturally. It used to be these tall things of wheat that would blow in the wind. Well, they hybridized, they modified. And now it's these short stalks. And people are eating it and just not being able to digest it like they used to. So all of these things, I mean, we're back to, that's probably what happened to me and how I ended up with my autoimmune disease.
I mean, even think about like all the kids today with peanut allergies and whatnot. I mean, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's like 88% or something of all peanuts that are, grown in the US are GMO peanuts.
Is that true?
And it's like,
yeah.
Well, of course, because they're eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with Jif peanut butter, and it's like just all GMO peanuts. And
it's also low with hydrogenated fats and high fructose corn syrup. So it goes back to, you think peanut butter is a healthy food and it's natural. Well, there's a reason why Jif and Skippy had to come out with natural peanut butter the past few years, because their standard isn't natural. I mean, hydrogenated fats are not good for you. They're not natural. It's been proven over and over. The government's trying to eliminate from the food industry, but it's taken a while. And high fructose corn syrup, I don't care what anybody says, to be natural is not good for you.
Well, it's GMO corn too. That's doing the corn syrup.
Good point. Good point, Nathan. Absolutely. So why is this important to live a successful life? Number one, okay, we talked about when you're not rested, you're exhausted. That's what happened to me a few years ago. And I didn't realize I was depleting my energy. And when you're tired, it makes it so much more difficult to deal with challenges, to deal with what you have to do during the day. All of the demands on you. Everything seems so hard.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
When you're tired, it's just like everything is difficult. And life doesn't need to be so difficult, because when you're rested, right? When you're hydrated, every cell of your brain and body is at least 70% water. You need to be hydrated. You need to drink lots of water. And research has shown that students, you're talking about students at school, those that drank a glass of water before taking an exam scored higher, relatively speaking, than those that didn't. Because your brain, how can you even think clearly if your brain is crusty and dry?
There are people that show up to class in the morning, like a 9 a.m. class with a bottle of Coca-Cola or Sprite. Like that must be the first thing that they reach for in the morning. And it's just, I just don't understand it. I don't understand how by noon, all of these people aren't just asleep.
Well, they're not doing well. And we know that. And they could be doing so much better. And again, not just students, adults.
Everybody.
Professionals are coming to me all the time saying that they're burned out, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed out. And thus, that's why I'm writing my book called Stressless Success, to try to teach them that when you do all of these things, eliminate the stress, and wellness is one piece of it, then everything. So the rest, the hydration, moving your body, breathing fresh air. So throughout the day, when you're feeling depleted, you're feeling tired, first of all, that comes from no rest and not eating well, not living well. You think you need a cup of coffee, right? You think like, oh, I'm so tired, I need a cup of coffee. What you need is hydration. You need to go get a glass of water. You need oxygen. So you need to move your body and breathe. And you need circulation. You move your body, right? We're sitting there on the computer. You're already exhausted, hyped up on sugar, caffeine, whatever. And then we become depleted. And so it's so simple. It's so simple to live a life that's easy and joyful and energized. But so look at me, what happened? Even I forgot. I didn't forget. I guess I didn't realize I was like running myself down and depleting myself. But before we move a little away from the food, I want you to realize, you're like, but wait a minute, Janet, I love my cake. I love my donut. I love my sugar. What we share with you at SanaView is you do not have to be deprived.
Right.
We eat all kinds of crazy, delicious foods. We love our food. We eat like all kinds of feasts, and we're always like, wow, this is so good.
Yeah, it's
Everything
all kinds of
we're
really
eating.
interesting stuff.
As a matter of fact, today, as we're preparing for this and having this conversation, we're eating my chewy chocolate brownies. Like, what is this? It's like chocolate brownies with coconut whipped cream. And sometimes I do my cashew whipped cream without any simple sugar.
Yeah.
We are not deprived. Like, this is
Right.
walnuts, dates, and cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
Every ingredient is actually good for you. Every ingredient supports your body in fighting disease.
Mm-hmm.
It supports your body in preventing disease, but it's satisfying that desire for something chewy and chocolatey and awesome. You got to go to our website at sanaview.com and get the recipe for this, or email us, and I'm glad to hand deliver it to you, right? Through email, right? All kinds of wonderful, decadent desserts where everything's healthy for you. As a matter of fact, when we do our empowerment leadership retreats, our Empower 3, and our rejuvenation retreats, we make all kinds of amazing food for you so that we can show people. The professionals, the executives that come to our retreats, they come for business, leadership, education, and advancement. But they always say they leave with an open mind on how important wellness is that they never even realized.
It's fascinating. I mean, as I kind of sit there and I record the testimonials, I'm listening to what people have to say about this stuff. And almost unanimously, people say that they're coming away with more wellness than they expected, but that's the thing that they needed the most.
If we tell them it's a wellness retreat, they won't come.
But it's not
think,
even. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. It's empowerment. What we're teaching is how you have the power within you to create the life that you desire. You have the power within you to choose better thoughts, to get rest, to create everything that you want around you. And the foundation is to feel great and to take care of yourself.
If you feel great, then it's like the day is great. It's so easy to have a bad day when you feel bad. But it's so hard to have a bad day if you feel amazing.
You know, the first Empower 3 retreat that we did, we actually were requested by the online network of executives. They're like, Janet, we love your teachings and we saw you have a farm. So we want you to have an offsite retreat for executives at your farm. And I said, well, that's interesting. That's something we need to consider doing. So we actually did one in conjunction with the country club that's right across the road from the farm. But people that come to the farm and they realize, well, wait a minute, this is really cool, like getting back to nature and eating real foods grown naturally. And people always say, why does the food grown at SanaView Farms taste so amazing? And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm not sure. I had to like think about it. And we've been like looking at that. Why is it so incredible? We just had a farm to table dinner last weekend at the farm, and everybody there was like, whoa, this whole experience, it was like the best experience they ever had, like going out to dinner for the evening. And so it was kind of fascinating because I look at it, Nathan, number one, of course, we're growing foods organically, right? We don't use any chemicals on the farm. But I realized too that we water with our spring water from the farm. And you think, well, okay, that's fine. We have filtered spring water at our farm. But when you eat organically, most of the foods are watered with treated water, treated with chlorine and fluoride and all kinds of chemicals.
Right. And for as great as it is that we can technically drink the water in this country and not have to worry about getting, deadly diseases, it is extremely important to pay attention to everything that goes in our bodies. And that is super important with the water because, to kill all the bacteria, it's hard chemicals. It's not natural and it's not good for us, and it's definitely not good for the food either. And so if you think about taking it back to simplicity, and growing produce that's organically simply grown, and then you're watering it with water that's got hard chemicals in it, like that doesn't make any sense.
Does not. And it's a shame. And then we realize it's really hard to get away from chemicals. But here at our farm, we're watering with filtered spring water. We're growing our food naturally. And on top of that, I explained to the people at our farm to table dinner last weekend that the reason why the food has so much flavor is because we wait till the food is ripe to pick it. The average food at our table travels 3,000 miles to get to us. And the food industry knows that. That's why they pick food when it's not completely ripe, because otherwise it would get damaged in transport, because it'd be soft and mushy. Like, you ever taste a tomato, like in the middle of the winter that came from South America? It doesn't taste
hard and it has no flavor.
It tastes like plastic, right? And that's why our non-heirloom tomato sauce that we sell from our farm is so popular, because we're actually picking tomatoes when they're ripe. So the flavor is fabulous, far more fabulous than what you typically get. But what's important for your health and wellness is we've given the opportunity for that vegetable to develop all the nutrient content because it's ripening on the plant. And the fruit, like the berries, we wait till they're truly ripe before we pick them. So they're getting more nutrients that develop and more flavor. There's just so much going on here. And some of you out there might be thinking, well, that's not great because I don't have access to a farm. I don't have my own farm, Janet. And trust me, you wouldn't want to. It's a ton of work. But what do I do? And it's like, okay, we're not saying that, oh, we're so fortunate we get to eat all this food from our farm and you're not. That's not the idea. We can't always. We don't grow everything. Our farm's very small. And
it also, I mean, we eat out too. Like, we're normal people. We're not like, people that just live on this farm and then eat all the food there and that's about it. Like, we still go grocery shopping and we still eat out at restaurants and we go out with friends and family. We
travel.
Like,
we love to eat out. We love to eat out. That's actually a conversation for another podcast, is how do we travel and eat out and still eat healthy, which we do. We're like pros at it. So that's another podcast.
Different podcast, but
let's
good
make
talk.
a note on that.
Yeah.
But so we do, you're right. We don't live this pristine life, but we still enjoy. And that's what's key. So when we are eating out, we don't think to ourselves, oh no, this stuff is not organic. We order really fabulous, delicious food that happens to be healthy, and we'll teach you how to do that, like we just said. But we don't worry about it. We enjoy it and we love it. But at the same time, most of our meals we eat at home and we do buy organic. If we ever, and we encourage people that are eating animal foods to eat animal foods that are naturally raised, because the cows, the pigs, the chickens, right? They're in horrible conditions. They're treated terribly.
It's really disturbing. Like, you can't even, you can't even watch, videos or documentaries. It's like really disgusting. Yeah.
And if you do, you'll never eat animal foods again if you do it. But the point is, if you are eating animal foods, and that's fine, what we encourage you to do, though, grass-fed beef, free range, eggs, and chickens organic, because cows are supposed to be breathing fresh air and eating grass. And otherwise they're eating genetically modified corn and grains. They're fed antibiotics and hormones because they're in such close quarters, and they've got to be given antibiotics to try to kill disease because they're not living in a healthy environment. And they're fed the corn and grains and mashed up cow parts. Cows aren't supposed to eat cows. It's like really just awful. And so again, where's your food coming from? And then you might think, well, how can I do that? I can't. You can't. You can find grass-fed beef. You can find free-range organic eggs and poultry at the store. You start looking for it, because the more we all start demanding it, which people are, the more then it's going to become available. And some restaurants are. It's hard to find, but some are starting to serve organic, some naturally raised, like even Chipotle, right?
Yeah, Chipotle is one of my favorite restaurants. It's just because it's, nice and quick and easy, but it's also, non-GMO. And I think their beans and their tofu is organic or something like that. But paying attention to, places that look for sustainability is really important. I mean, I know that they're super strict on their meats, and if they can't find something where the animal's raised properly, then they're not going to serve it. It's not even like they're going to compromise on anything. Or if they do, they make it very clear and they put up signs and whatnot. But I know that, at least in my spheres throughout my life, the biggest argument against all of this that I've seen is price and not being able to afford it. And the thing I want to say about that is, one, prices for organics are coming down because it is becoming more popular. It is becoming more mainstream, which is fantastic. But it also doesn't have to be expensive at all. I mean, you can grow this stuff at your home, or even if you live in an apartment, like you can do indoor growing with, grow lights or whatever else. Or you just did a whole talk on doing sprouts. I mean, it's like cents, pennies for organic seeds that you can grow organic sprouts on your countertop in the middle of winter. Like it's
the healthiest, most nutritious organic produce you can ever put in your body. You can grow on your countertop all year round. It takes you 2 seconds a day and costs you pennies. We'll have to do a podcast on that.
Yeah, because I think this whole argument about it's too expensive is like, I don't know. It's to me, it almost feels like an excuse of somebody just trying to get out of doing it. And it's like, this is going to potentially save your life or just even save your nerves. I mean, could you imagine, like, think about how much less road rage there would be if people didn't wake up stressed out, do the coffee and the donut, and then get in the car to then sit in traffic. Like, I don't know. It's so important.
You just said a key thing, which is the basis of everything we teach. When you take care of yourself, you're healthy, you're more vibrant, you're more successful.
Yeah.
The more successful you are, the more abundance you have in your life.
Right.
Of not just money, right, which is key. So is it really more expensive? Is it really more expensive to eat healthy foods when you prevent health challenges, less lost work days, less hours at the doctor's office, less medications and surgery and organs being removed?
Yeah.
Right? More energy, more vitality, more success, and better relationships, everything. So it's not true that the organic foods and the healthy foods are more expensive when you look at things from the big picture. And that's what's interesting. But to tie back now to our last podcast about going from horrible to happy and the challenges in our life, what happened to me was you talk about being more in balance, and we're going to talk about, I really do believe often that balance is BS. So we're going to do a podcast on that.
Yeah, right.
In the future. When you have an exciting project happening, you want to give your all to it. You want to put in more hours. And I love my business so much. I love what I do so much. I don't feel like it's work. Like I love what we're doing right now. Like this is just fabulous. I could do this like 24/7.
Yeah.
And so not always does it make sense. Sorry. Not always does it make sense to worry about always being in balance, right? But we'll talk about that another time. But I did deplete myself. I overdid it. Absolutely. I was traveling, doing this, doing that, and just too much of what was wearing me out. And what happened then was the more worn out I became, the more bad things started to happen because I couldn't keep my energy vibration up. I was no longer living an energized, joyful life that I was living. I was living like sort of stressed and depleted and struggling to try to keep up with everything that I had to do. Right. And so what happened was, what a week. We had to go to the farm one day because we found out that the new structure that was being built over the patio wasn't built correctly and some of the beams were starting to fall. And so I was really concerned about that and stressed out, and because my energy was depleted, it was harder to deal with that problem. But also I think I attracted the problem, right? Because here I was depleting my energy and I started to create negative situations around me.
And I mean, that was a big one too. I just want to mention, like, we have so many people at the farm every week that this is like a lawsuit waiting to happen sort of a deal in terms of just like public safety. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
it was serious.
It's not like a design thing was slightly off and then it's like, some disaster. It was beams could fall on people, super bad news sort of a thing.
Right. No, it sounded like that at first. We found out later it wasn't quite that bad, but and there's a good that came out of it. But well, let's talk about that because of that challenge, it was actually there to help us. Yes. Because really it was just one beam that the screws weren't exactly right and it was just coming down a little bit. But that's serious enough. But what happened was it created a situation where we got to with the architect and one of the carpenters, and we said, okay, what do we need to do to strengthen this building? And because of that little bit of an issue, which seemed enormous, we revisited the entire design. And because of that, we strengthened the whole thing. We bolted it better than ever we would have, better than we ever would have to begin with. And now we're adding these really cool steel pieces that are not going to add design enhancements from an aesthetic standpoint, but it's going to add strength. So because of that issue, we now have a stronger, more beautiful building than we ever would have if it wasn't for this one beam being a little bit loose. But the challenge weighed heavy on my mind, which I was already depleted. That day, we got a phone call from my garden manager that the water stopped working at the farm. So I then had to call an emergency plumber and figure out what was going on there. And that same afternoon, we found out that our AC stopped working in our home in Pittsburgh. And this is what happens. Okay, you call it Murphy's Law. This is what happens. Once something goes bad and we can't handle the stress because we're exhausted and we're depleted, we create this negative energy within us that creates more and more problems around us. Now, what came good out of that? Again, because of the issue with the water at the farm, there were angels coming from out of the woodwork coming to help us at the farm. It was the weirdest thing. Like, we're so protected. But the local plumbing supply company, I called them, and here they recommended this emergency plumber. Here, he came and spent all day, fixed everything better than ever. He only charged us like $300. Guess what? Now I have the most awesome plumber to rely on going forward to support the farm. And he lives right there. It's like, that's a good thing that came out of it. And within the day, he got all the water going from no water to completely working before we ever had new people moving into the cabins. So we were able to look at each challenge and see the gifts that actually came out of each one. But the biggest thing is to remember, life does not have to be so difficult when you learn to take care of yourself, to get the rest, be hydrated, drink the water, think good thoughts, breathe fresh air, move your body, eat real food, grow naturally, and don't be just hyped up on chemicals and sugar and crap. Then you're going to feel like crap, right? We want you to feel fabulous. You have no idea how great you can feel. You have no idea. Energy, vitality, positivity. This is what it takes to live a successful life. And that's what we want for you. And that's why we're sharing all this with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have these conversations and this stuff is definitely worth sharing. I mean, we want everybody to live the best life that they can live. And it's like, we know that there are things that we do to help ourselves feel and be happy and healthy. And we just want to share that with everybody else because we just know how important it is in our lives. And we have seen it impact a lot of people who live around us, you know, even my grandfather, your father, like that is super important to us.
And now he's 80 and he's fabulously healthy he's been perfect blood sugar, perfect cholesterol, perfect blood pressure. He's like in perfect health. It's like amazing. Better than he ever was decades ago, actually. And me too. I'm healthier now than I ever was in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah,
so we want this for you. And hopefully you see that. We are dedicating our lives to inspiring and teaching you to live the best life and to live a better life. So life doesn't have to be difficult. So join us next time. We're going to go in deeper or further, and we're going to teach you the balance is BS. Thank you for joining us. We love you very much. And I love you, Guy.
Love you too.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Please consider joining our live online group coaching that we offer every month. We're there with you, having a conversation, teaching you important things about living a successful life, but also you're able to share things that you're going through, and we're there to give you like that direct attention. Also, come to our live events at our farm and across the country, or invite us to your community, to your organization, to your corporation. We are here to share information with you any way possible. So get online, we'll give you the link. Come join us live. We'd love to see you there.